Hi, Brock Anderson here, Hang Loose Outdoors. Your weekly tip is for the first week in April 2016. Comes in like a question form. A lot of guys ask, do I spool my rods and reels for the walleye opener in braid, or do I use monofilament, fluorocarbon? Well, line has came a long way in the last decade. Everything's so advanced and works so nice. I'm on the water over 100 days, open water season, and I'm going to tell you, if you only have two rods and reels, spool one with monofilament, the other one with braid. Monofilament, I like using the strand Magna Thin in like a 6 to 8 pound test. That's just what I've found that works the best and lasts. I have confidence in that. You might have confidence in the Berkeley Trilene. Again, line is a big personal opinion. It's what you feel right with. It's what you feel confident with. As far as braid goes, I like. I just spooled this guy up. This is a Suffix 832 in a 10-pound test. I also like Fireline. I was a big Fireline guy when braid first came out, and Fireline's a hard one to beat. Again, like I said, it's all personal opinion, but fishing tournaments and stuff, I will say you want some rods and reels with mono and some with braid. Every different presentation, something works better. It depends if you're going through the weeds or the rocks or fishing out deep. I just want to kind of start at the beginning of the season and kind of tell you what I use with what presentation. Let's start at the Rainy River. A lot of guys are up there fishing walleyes right now, or will be until the season closes mid-April. I like to use braid. You're kind of battling the current. There's a lot of debris on the bottom, and I like pounding that jig on bottom, a foot or two up, and then hitting the bottom again. With that braid, you can feel everything. You can feel the subtle bites in the current, and you can really set the hook into those bigger walleyes. The water's murky, so I don't think you have to worry about them seeing your line as if you were on a clear body of water. So I like to go braid there, but mono works just fine too. Let's go to the Minnesota Fishing Opener on May 14th. You're probably going to be fishing 4 to 10 feet of water on the shorelines. The water's a little bit clear. I'm going with monofilament, like a 6 to 8 pound test, and I'm always going to have a fluorocarbon leader attached to a swivel attached to the end of my jig. You can really do good rip jigging right away early in May, and that mono just adds a little bit of stretch. You keep your jigging shiner on, or you keep your shiner on. It doesn't get pulled out through the head or your plastic, and it adds a better flutter to your presentation early in the year. Let's move on to, say, the first part of June, when we start lindy rigging crawlers and leeches. I'm going mono again, attached to a fluorocarbon leader, say a 4 to 5 foot leader with just a single hook on a crawler or a leech, working the edge of the weeds, or maybe pushing out into that secondary structure where the walleyes are. As the month of June progresses, you might move out a little bit deeper, or you push in, maybe right smack dab into the weeds, and you start trolling some spinners. I'm going to use braid when I'm trolling spinners. Braid just helps you feel, the vibration of that spinner a little better, and it's more of a reaction bite. So once a fish hits, it's pretty much on. You don't have to give her any time. I mean, it hits, it's on. You're reeling that fish into the boat. You can feel if the weeds have kind of malfunctioned your spinner, or you've lost your crawler due to a perch. You can just feel those bites in that bottom and the whole habitat. a little bit better with that braid. You're trolling faster. Like I said, it's more of a reaction bite. I go with braid when I'm trolling spinners. Let's move on to maybe midsummer. You're fishing a little bit deeper water. The fish have pushed off the shoreline onto secondary structures, onto humps, deep flats. A lot of guys are getting into vertical jigging, say a jig and wrap or a rip and wrap. I go with braid in that instant with say a 3 to 4 foot fluorocarbon leader. You're down there pounding the bottom, and when a fish hits, I mean, you can set the hook right away. Fish is on, there's no stretch in your line with braid, and that's how I go. If you're vertical jigging a leech, say on a big jig or something, I'll stick with mono on that. You can give them a second, that's live bait. I'll stick with mono in that instant. Again, it's personal opinion. Trolling crankbaits in the summer or night trolling, I'll go with braid. You can feel that that lure, that rapala, that salmo behind the boat, the vibrations. You can feel if there's a weed attached to it better with braid than you can with mono. Fish hits it, fish is on. A lot of guys have been getting into Lindy rigging big minnows, like a big creek chub, big red tail, or a big shiner, later in the summer. Or say if you're tournament fishing, you're pretty much using this presentation for a big walleye. I'm always going with mono when I'm rigging a big minnow. It just allows you a little bit more air. Say you're fishing the edge of the weeds and your minnow gets hung up. Sometimes you think it's hung up on a weed, but it's actually a big walleye that grabs it, just sits there. You have a little bit more forgiveness. You can feel that fish, feel it out before you can start feeding line. If it really hammers it and you're holding onto your line, you have a little bit more forgiveness where that fish isn't going to feel you. You can feed them a little bit of line before you click your bail over, set the hook. So that's what I use in different presentations throughout the walleye season, open water season. That might change if I run into a different presentation. That's just what's worked for me, what's worked for the hang loose boys. So like I said, if you only have 2 rods, 2 reels for walleye fishing, spool one with braid, spool one with mono, and then that'll get the job done. So thanks for listening to this week's tip, and we'll see you on the water, or we'll see you next week. Thanks.